Hello and welcome to Inside News. It's Lying for the Levy once again. It's Dale Matthews and Mike Jones. Mike.
Good evening, Dale. I am rested and ready.
It's that time of year where we just get prepared for a bunch of... How can you tell the good guys from the bad guys in any argument? The bad guys have a tendency to lie to you a lot. And it's in this county, it's pretty easy to tell. That's all you need to know. So good night, everybody.
Yes. Well, yeah, but, sometimes the lying is...
Subtle?
Yeah, it's subtle. It's not an out-and-out lie. What it is that they're not telling you that they're not telling you the reason why they're not going to move road dollars to the sheriff's department.
Right.
I mean, they're saying, well, that would be bad because then we would be ill-equipped to deal with road emergencies. It has nothing to do with that. They don't want to move anything to the sheriff because passing a levy is of the utmost importance, and anything that would slightly remove pressure is frowned upon.
Yes. But fortunately for us, especially in the upcoming election, there are some people who are not very artful liars. And the first little part of our show, about the first quarter to 1/3, you will see that. And then we're going to do one of our favorite things. We're going to read you a letter. So here's a couple of clips from a person who's had a lot of experience with such things.
Just a couple of clarifications, I guess we could say. A comment was made several times that we were somehow, the Board of Commissioners were somehow involved in this latest effort, or the several previous efforts to pass a levy. The last two have been citizen-initiated levies. The Board of Commissioners had nothing to do with it other than to say, I'm sorry, I don't know what the dubious look is for, but that's what it was. That's how it happened. So if you don't want my explanation, there's no need for me to continue that one.
That's nice. Okay. So why do people have any doubts about this? Take it away, Keithek, once again. No, that's not it. This is it.
Liaison update. Jim Goodwin has been requested to develop a generalized budget with the answer to the question, what does it cost to operate the juvenile justice system, to see whether there might be an interest, a hypothetical figure, using a figure of $2 million. That's what it costs. And how much is needed to get there. Is there a possibility of it having a levy for that particular, that everybody understands, is designated for that, so that the juvenile justice at least can get up functioning or whatever. So he's already responded to some preliminary information on that.
And this is why people laugh when Keith Hicks says that in the last couple of times the commissioners had absolutely nothing to do with initiating a levy. That is initiating a levy. Before anybody else brought it up, before anybody else asked for it, Keith Hick is tasking a staff person to come up with details to hand over to, at that time it was to SOS. Mike?
Yeah, and listen, there's been a little bit of running gun battle on Facebook because the levy pushers are at it again. There's obviously going to be a renewed assault on getting a levy passed, and I believe that they're starting early for next spring. That would be my guess, right, by the way things look. But it should be understood that all of the levy pushing is coming from local government. None of it is coming from the grassroots. If SOS, which is they're an organization that is headed by government officials. So the push for a levy is coming from government, and they're trying to make it look as though it's a grassroots effort. It isn't at all. There is no if you didn't have these two, CUFs and SOS, which all are populated by the same people. They're either directly government employees, or they're friends or neighbors or associates or family members of government employees. So if you didn't have these two organizations doing this, you wouldn't have a levy effort put forth from the public. You just wouldn't. There wouldn't. So really, I think it would be better if they just put away the pretense, and just have the commissioners, if that's what they want to do, put a levy on the ballot. It's ultimately going to be the same thing. You're going to have the same people working and pushing for the levy, and that's the people that are involved in these two organizations and whoever they can get to come with them.
Now, there's a question, should be in any honest person's mind, can we trust our county government to level with us? Here's where that trust goes.
I will never promote a tax, property tax, sales tax. I personally, as a commissioner, will never support that. I supported the first one back in January, right after we got elected, and it went down into flames. Okay, learn my lesson. Good deal. I just look dumb. I'm not stupid. It has to be generated by the people that are going to be asked to pass the tax. If that can be generated by them, what in the world advantage would it have if I or the Board of Commissioners leads the death march? Because that's all it's going to be.
Of course, we have to have everything in sometime, I think, in early February for the May ballot.
26.
February 26th. Okay, so it's not early, so late February. We can get it all together.
Super early February, so that doesn't freak out.
But if this is, is this something I want to think about it?
Is the May ballot the best ballot?
No, I think it should be the November ballot.
What do you want to think about that? I don't think that if I were going to do it, I wouldn't pick the May ballot.
The reason I picked the May ballot is it passes whatever we pass, and May can be billed on the taxes in November. If it goes on the November ballot, 2016, it can't be billed until November 2017.
Right.
You can build a budget in 17 around expected revenue. 16, 17.
I'm not averse to giving it the old college try.
I resent the implications that somehow I'm an unethical individual. I'm sorry, I'm not going to just count out that kind of baloney.
He resents the implication, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I don't mean to imply it. I'm going to say it straight out. He's an unethical person. Okay, so...
Yeah.
Well, because he said, I will not. I am not going to do this. I won't do it. Read my lips. I'm not doing it. And then a week later, he's doing it. I'm willing to give it the good old college try. He's a liar. Is there two ways about that?
Well, and listen, I say that this illustrates the power of the suggestion of your peers. And, obviously, if you were in that joint session between the commissioners and the county councilors or the city councilors, it would have been very, very clear to you which direction the current was flowing. And I guess after a while, that even wore Keith Heck down. And, I'm assuming that there were some private conversations somewhere between Keith Heck and Cheryl Walker about, why they need to go along with it, or they passed a message to somebody else who passed a message back to the other party and said, hey, listen, this is what we need to get behind this. This is what needs to happen. It just goes to prove, if you're going to be in there and you are planning on pushing an agenda that is counter to the agenda that the apparatus is used to pushing, you better have some cojones. You better have a spine made of steel.
Well, here's what happened right after that.
Good. Anything else?
One more thing. I put this on there was something that I would like to propose. I know we've tried so many things. I know Commissioner Heck has said he wasn't going to support any more levies, but there's one thing we have not tried. And this is one that I've been out talking to a lot of people, and they say, well, why don't you just put it out there, like one thing, where people can vote on each function. So there'll be one for jail, one for deputies, one for juvenile, one for DA. And it's a separate measure for each one with a dollar value attached to it, so many cents per thousand. And that way people choose, okay, the jail's important to me and so is juvenile. They don't have to vote for all of them. They vote for their choice. It's like a smorgasbord or a menu item type of thing. And we've never tried it before. And this is something that I'm hearing more and more out there. They said, we can't afford the whole enchilada, so to speak, but we can afford a couple of them. And that may not be ideal for us, but I've come to the conclusion that something's better than nothing, which is what we have right now is nothing, and not getting better. So I asked the information from finance as to what it was in fiscal year 11 and 12, which was kind of like the last time we had any full funding, and I've asked them getting this year's on comparison.
Let's just be clear, that was not full
That was
funding.
not full. I said closest to full funding that we had. The most recent that was closest to full funding. It was not full funding, by the way. I know that. Sorry. Thank you.
No,
If I didn't say that clearly, thank you.
That's,
Yeah, but that was the last time that we had anything that was close to the funding in the recent last number of years.
it's a good goal. That would
It's a
be a
good
great
goal.
place to be.
And that's where we start. That's where we would start. And I can put together some numbers if you think that this would be something that we could put out as a board for people to say, to actually act on what they're telling me out there, that we can't afford it all, but I can pay something less to get some of it. And of course, then that would definitely help us bridge this situation that we're running up against, where we probably will not have secure rural schools funding after the cliff.
Why would this not be one of those wonderful opportunities for citizens groups, whether it's SOS or that kind, to work a citizen initiative with these kinds of stipulations?
Make the May ballot?
Yeah.
Is the May ballot the best ballot?
No, I think it should be the November ballot.
What do you want to think about that? I don't think that maybe, if I were going to do it, I wouldn't pick the May
The
ballot.
reason I picked the May ballot is if it passes, or whatever we pass in May, it can be billed on the taxes in November. If it goes on the November ballot, 2016, it can't be billed until November 2017.
Right.
You can build a budget in 17 around expected revenue. 16, 17 can be built around expected revenue in 17. You just bridge it.
So what do you think that Keith Heck means when he said that they were not involved in initiating a budget, when they are involved twice now, 2 years in a row, in tasking county personnel to gather up information, as Keith Heck said, pass along to those citizens groups that are putting together the dang thing?
Yeah, listen, people are so they're so used to the subtlety of deceit from these people that they don't even see it. Keith Heck is saying right there, wouldn't this be one of these opportunities in reference to Cheryl Walker's plan of breaking it up into a bunch of different pieces? Wouldn't this be one of those great opportunities for one of these citizen organizations to do this? Well, wait a minute. If it is, then they'll come up with it themselves. It obviously shows that the first point of action there is, hey, we got an idea. Maybe it would be something that these guys can run with. Listen, if you're not for pushing levies, then you aren't anywhere in that process. You're neither the beginner or the ender of the thing. You are simply out of it. And if somebody suggests it, that's something that's happening out here somewhere that you have no awareness of, other than something that somebody told you.
Well, one of the salvations that we might have in our county is we have an elected legal counsel. And this guy could be giving ethics advice to the commissioners.
Yep. And I'm going to disagree with you here because this is not an ethics thing. Listen, there's nothing illegal about suggesting. There's nothing illegal about calling the guy on the phone and saying, "Hey, come on down here. We've got an initiative for you guys to push." And being
No, I'm not talking about
that.
I'm not talking about breaking the law. I'm talking about telling us in no uncertain terms that the commissioners are not involved in any way in initiating a levy, and then on videotape that they're, well, here's what Wally Hicks has to say about that. Listen to this. This is our supposed protector.
The one thing that I would want to figure out a way to say that if any additional revenue generating mechanism were to be needed to satisfy the full need of the criminal justice system, that would have to go to the voters. But revenue generated would be matched through this provision, dollar for dollar, by the state, as long as this agreement were in place.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Yeah, and yeah, I'll try not to be too clear or too precise in terms of what the agreement would involve, because we don't
We don't know what that agreement
whatever agreement we come to if this ends up going through.
And that's about asking the governor to take over some of our services.
Yeah, and I listen. I kind of know what he's talking about there, and I'm not as alarmed about that as you are. I think the county council is always going to come down on the side of protecting the board when it comes to the parsing of words. And in the case of Keith Heck saying that wouldn't this be a better idea for these other people over here, he's not going to have anything to say, nor actually should he. In this particular case here, they may have been talking about the composition of a document, and in fact, if you were to enter into this intergovernmental agreement with them, it is something that takes a period of time to hash out, and the details will be different at the end than it is at the beginning. So I'm not faulting Wally, although that's a great thing to seize on. I don't think Wally is. I don't think that's evidence of guilt of anything. I just think, you know what, it really, these people, I would love it if they would just be honest and come out and say, hey, listen, I realize that the greater public out there doesn't want this, but I want it. And there are a number of other people want it. So we're going to put it on the ballot, and you can say yay or nay or whatever. And it would suck having to fight it again, but we're having to fight it again every single time anyway, whether they come at it deceitfully or straightforward. So I don't see the difference.
Has Keith Heck learned any kind of lesson? Oops, sorry. The question is,
there you are.
Yes, has Keith Heck learned any kind of lesson about leveling with us, about being honest? Here's Keith Heck from last Wednesday.
I have said myself personally, I'm not going to support the initiation of a levy from the board. I'm not going to support, and I've maintained that for 3.5 years. And I'm just not. So I don't know where that has its life. I have a pretty good idea, but because untruths that are told over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, they do take on a life of their own, and that becomes truth in people's
minds. Yeah,
yes.
I'm gonna.
Hey, Dale.
Yeah.
I have something that's perfect for insertion right here. He said, support. And even if you want to play that clip over again, here are two definitions of support. Bear all or part of the weight of or hold up. 2, give assistance to, especially financially, and able to function or act. I would think that he is supporting them. I mean, if he is the impetus in any way for the levy going forward by saying, hey, listen, I've got an idea, come down here and I'll give you, this information, and then you can take that and run with it.
That we paid for, that our county employees are doing the research. We're paying for them to do that, and these guys are handing it over to SOS and Cuffs.
That's clearly support, but he hasn't gotten on a soapbox and given a speech about his support for the levy. I don't see the difference.
It's disingenuous. Okay, so what we found recently is there's yet another, you may recall this from a year ago, another long kind of letter from Jay Meredith, who is the Grants Pass City Finance Director. And Mike and I are going to talk about reactions to this in 2 days. But tonight, we're going to read to you the letter so that you can, the information that he wrote, so that you can see for yourself. The first blow has been struck in pushing for a levy. You ready, Mike?
Yeah, but here, let me lay some groundwork here.
Please.
This letter that he wrote is actually a posting from Facebook that is a comment on a thread below this particular article that has been, I suspect has been paid for. This is at revealnews.org, and the story is in the rural West, residents choose low taxes over law enforcement. And he posted that, and then there was, a number of exchanges, and then the letter that we're about to read to, or one of his postings that makes it very, very clear. Because just so you know, Jay Meredith he's essentially the driving force behind SOS. I believe he's the president, and he's certainly, between him and Archie Leidy are basically running that SOS operation.
Okay, so here is the letter, and Mike and I are going to read to you the whole dang thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Harvesting more timber and minerals is a key, both federal managed and county owned land. A key answer. The county and others are doing what they can on that front, but it's a tough nut to crack, and we don't have years to wait for the conclusion of lawsuits and other harvesting efforts. There are also some great things going on here locally with some expansions of ag-related businesses and mining, but that will take years to materialize into the county's bottom line.
Should we hold the county and our safety hostage for mistakes the county made 10, 20, or even 30 years ago? I think we can all agree some mistakes were made, and in the past, and yes, the sheriff's office also made some mistakes in the past, but we can't do anything about that now other than learn from them and move forward with multiple levies no matter what you say or do. No, that's not a part of it. And don't make those mistakes again. Don't hold the current sheriff hostage for mistakes made many years ago. Let's not cut off our nose to spite our face.
Think recruiting companies and the almighty phrase economic development is going to get us out of this mess? Think again. The number one most important factor about where companies choose to locate and expand is the crime rate. Well, here, let me just pause for a second. Perhaps they should go to the statistics for that. Anyway, and I continue. And even we doubled the amount of companies, buildings, and jobs we had here. Even if we doubled the amount of companies, buildings, and jobs we had here tomorrow, that would only add about $4 million total county property tax revenues because the county taxes are so low. Yes, total property taxes directly to Josephine County each year are only $4 million per year. That rate comes from everyone in the county, whether you live in the city or not. And we expect to support an entire justice system with that $4 million. A justice system that if funded just adequately would cost about $17 million a year. So you see what they're targeting here. No matter what they get ultimately, they're looking past $17 million a year because funded just adequately would be $17 million a year, not to mention other county funding needs. And needless to say, we're not going to double the amount of development and buildings that we have in the county tomorrow. Yes, we need better paying jobs, but if we don't take care of basic necessities like law enforcement, the types of jobs we want here won't arrive at the rate we need to make a huge impact on law enforcement funding. There are some amazing businesses popping up, and the job situation is getting better. But that in itself, it doesn't directly impact law enforcement funding in a big way anytime soon. Yes, of course, we need to focus on economic development. Nobody is going to say that's not needed, but that in itself won't solve law enforcement funding specifically. So the only thing that would handle it specifically, and he's not saying it. This is the thing. It's disingenuous because they're not just saying, listen, you need to pass a levy. Case closed. Levy is the only thing that'll do it. They don't say that. Sorry.
Are you a fan of local control? Yes. Well, right now, our county law enforcement is largely in the hands of the state. 14 hours per day. OSP, Oregon State Police, doesn't respond unless it's severe. And try to go to OSP and tell them you want them to patrol more or patrol differently. Good luck with that. The state is also facing severe budget issues next year for various reasons, and the support we do have from OSP won't likely be here forever. We should be grateful they filled a small portion of the gap, but even with that, a massive gap remains.
Don't be distracted by those that say the county isn't moving all available dollars to public safety.
Mike, I'm distracted by that.
Yes.
Because it looks like we're not moving all available dollars to public safety.
Yeah,
so
that is what it looks like.
Yeah,
it's confusing. Yeah, either we're wrong or he's wrong. One of the two. I don't know which one it is.
Well, you've seen the video, so you can decide.
Right. Well, there are a few funds that could be moved. Now, wait a minute. That's kind of contradictory, isn't it? That doesn't make any sense. Wait a minute. Don't be distracted by those that say the county isn't moving all available money to public safety. While there are a few funds that could be moved, it's not a solution that helps beyond a few months. Well,
now wait a minute.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah. Also, it was Simon Hare that said, well, we gave them, it was about $400,000 2 years ago, I think it was, and that only lasted a year. Well, it didn't need to just last for a year. You could have gotten one deputy and a car to last 3.5 years out of that. Yeah. So we didn't make the decision. The sheriff made the decision. Pressured by the commissioners to make it only last for a short time. They're making it sound like the $400,000, and that's just one example that we gave, that we have given for economic development. This guy is saying that it's the key to economic development, but then they don't want to spend economic development money on it because it won't make any difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, listen, it's stupid. They really are setting up an all or nothing. You have to have it all, or you have nothing. So, and all means a property tax increase. And, so anyway, here we go.
Think about.
Hang on. Think about a tiny Band-Aid over a huge artery bleed. Yes, it's great imagery. It only makes sense as a temporary bridge funding source because once you move the money into another area and use it, it can't be done again. And it's only very temporary. The argument of moving.
Wait a second. Simon Hare has been saying that the last time that we put any of that money into the sheriff's office, it didn't lead to a solution. Yeah, well, because the solution is you're supposed to vote for a property tax. That's the thing at the end of the bridge. It's a bridge to nowhere. What he means is, and what he said is, it was not a bridge to a property tax. So it's nothing. It did nothing for anybody. It was just a waste of money.
Right. Yeah. It's
bridge funding.
The argument over moving road funds over to public safety only makes sense if there is a revenue source coming for public safety in the future. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't quite get that, but okay. And we're only doing about 25 to 50% of the road work that we should be doing on an annual basis because our road funding isn't sufficient either. I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, where'd that come from?
Yeah, and listen. Yeah, I have. This is the first place I've ever heard that. And let me tell you something. If you think the roads are bad here, you have not been to California lately.
Right.
You know, I have property down in Napa County. I go down there from time to time. The road from out of Napa that goes out rurally to where my property is has never been in worse shape. And I guarantee you the revenue into the state of California, including gasoline taxes where that road maintenance money is supposed to come from, has never been higher. Never been higher. But the problem is that they're spending it. They're spending it too quickly is the problem. They're spending it, you know, they're spending too much of it.
So let's suppose that his numbers are anywhere near correct.
Mm-hmm.
And 25 to 50% of the road work is getting done. Mm-hmm. Well, now, what percentage, they haven't been saying what percentage, but what percentage based on the things that they do say of law enforcement patrols do you think are out there? Would you agree that we're only doing 50% of the patrols? Well, let's suppose that we're only doing 25% of the law enforcement
I think it's less than that.
You think that we're doing that? You feel that they're doing less, or that the levy pushers feel that we're doing less?
Well, and listen,
order of.
Yeah, I don't really know. You know, I got to tell you, I think there are few people in this county that actually have a problem with the level of law enforcement that they are, but those are loud voices. They're in areas of concentrated population where I live, and where a lot of people that I know that live rurally in the county, they never see a sheriff in their neighborhood. They could leave their doors unlocked if they wanted to, and there would never be an issue. And so we generally don't need a lot of assistance from them, and they probably do need them in you know, areas in Cave Junction and some places, you know. But that's not a huge county-wide situation. Those are hot spots in a few different places where crime is taking place. We're getting off of it a little bit.
Well,
listen,
Simon Hare would disagree with you, Mike, because Simon Hare said there was a non-binding question on the ballot a couple of years ago where people were asked, "Are you satisfied with the level of service?" And they said, "No, we're not."
74% of them.
And why isn't that? You know, why shouldn't we just go by?
And Jay Meredith leans heavily on that too. And you know, it's odd. He keeps quoting that that result, but he doesn't care. It doesn't seem to impact him at all that subsequent levies failed.
Right.
You know, so
it's not impact. That's true. But my earlier point was, if the road work truly is down to only a quarter of what we should be doing, and if law enforcement patrols are down to, for the sake of argument, a quarter of what they should be doing, why isn't it? Why isn't it true? Are people not moving here because of our bad roads? They're not moving here from California because of our bad roads, or they're not moving here the second choice is they're not moving here because our county officials keep talking about what horrible safety record we have.
Right. Listen, Dale, it's an excellent point. No one is saying that the roads are bad in Josephine County. Nobody is. I haven't heard anybody's. I've heard I wanted to say Jay Leno, Jay Meredith saying that. That's the only person I'm hearing saying that the roads are bad. No one else is saying it that I have heard.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll continue. Let me just go back over the argument of moving road funds over to public safety only makes sense if there is a revenue source coming for public safety in the future. And we're only doing about 25 to 50% of the road work that we should be doing on an annual basis because our road funding isn't sufficient either. So taking that money away from the road funds creates another safety problems. Despite that, even I stood up last summer and said to the county that the county should do that. But that was only because I thought the county and community would have a serious discussion and implement some solutions in the last year. Here we are a year later, and this county community has their head in the sand. So it's a good thing we didn't create a bridge to nowhere.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I just, you know what? It isn't a bridge to nowhere. You're saying that the sheriff's department needs funding. So if you give them money, that's funding. That's part of what they need there. I don't understand the thinking. Well, actually, I do understand the thinking. This is noise. It's not true. They don't believe that. None of these things they think are true. There's only one objective, and the objective is a increase in property tax income. And if they don't get that, then they're not interested in anything.
Well, here's his solution. Is it time the citizens took the discussion into our own hands and shake the county that's paralyzed? We need an intense community discussion because, Mike, there has been no discussion.
We've never done that. Yes, we've never done that. Who is having a more intense discussion about this stuff than we do right here? They're not interested in having the discussion that we have right here because at the end of the show, we don't go, yeah, you know what? A levy is the way to go.
It's a bridge to nowhere.
Yeah.
All of our discussions are a bridge to nowhere because we don't end up saying, okay, we need to be forced into a levy. We need an intense community discussion about what to do and how to do it. And ultimately, it will be a series of solutions, which is why SOS has been working in all those areas. Now, Mike, you were involved with them when they were working in all those areas. Were they really working in all those areas?
Not really. Listen, I think most of the discussion outside of pushing a levy has basically been for show. That yes, we'll see, we really are about these other solutions. Nothing ever precipitates out of the pursuit of those ideas at all, ever. But
they're having a race to help raise awareness of why we need higher property taxes. Well, the race itself is a wonderful, wonderful thing, right?
Yeah. Listen, everybody knows what's going on here. Everybody knows. And they vote no every time. Do you think they don't know? Do you think they don't understand this is a controversial decision that they're making? Of course they know that. Now, he goes on to say, are you sick of hearing about all the stolen cars and stolen property? Now, if we're hearing about it, then that is reported crime. Well, the statistics don't show any massive increase in crime here. Now, he's saying that there's more crime. The great thing about this is you can say there's more crime without there actually being a great deal more crime. Now, there may be more crime, but that does not show in the numbers. And if people are talking about stolen car, is anybody not reporting a stolen car? Is anybody not? You know, I mean, for the most part, people are reporting stolen property. You know, listen, if somebody came onto my house, onto my property and stole something, I don't care what it is. I'm going to tell the cops that something took place. Somebody stole this from my property.
Well, I've got
And
two
then
points.
I'll pull
Okay.
out my security camera footage and we'll nail the guy.
I got 2 points, and you can see them if you look on top of my head.
Oh.
One of them is Cheryl Walker said recently on another subject. She said that and there are near misses that are happening near the park property, and it's just gone up. It's something that's just recently happened, and after a whole generation of parking near the parks, that there are near misses. So I've asked the question: where do you go to get the statistics about near misses? Does the sheriff department have a database of near misses? Is Cheryl Walker out there with some kind of clicker clicking on the near misses? Are the commissioners sitting in cars and talking
Look what
to
almost just happened. Yes.
in a quorum about the near misses and looking out the window and seeing the near misses? Who the heck says there's near misses?
Yeah.
Okay,
No, that's silly. And then listen, he goes on saying people getting killed and seriously injured on our roads in huge numbers for a community our size. Now, this sentence serves two purposes. Number one, people getting killed. Somehow, if we passed a levy, fewer people would get killed. And so we really need to be concerned about that because, when somebody murders somebody, if there's plenty of cops around, they say, hey, don't do that. And that deters people getting killed. The other thing is they're getting killed on our roads. See, so our roads must be in really bad shape, causing these people to get killed. We have a dual crisis now in road funding and law enforcement funding. And we just really can't figure out which one of those two things is more important.
It's not drunk driving. Ask Simon Hare. What it is it's people that are driving over ruts or something in the road and careening into other vehicles. I don't see that in any of the reports. Even if I look at KJO, I'm not seeing that. And the other point I was going to make about all this is if he just said that the reason businesses aren't coming here and the reason that we can't raise our economic prosperity is because people are hearing about, outside the area, are hearing about all the folks that are killed and seriously injured on our roads. Who's telling them that people are getting killed and seriously injured on our roads if it's not for Jay Meredith and the commissioners and KJO?
Right.
They're learning about this from the machine that's pumping it out on a daily basis saying, look, we're a terrible place to move. Look, you can't possibly move here because we're so terrible. We're not the naysayers. We're not the people who are downplaying our community and calling it bad names. It's these guys, and they're doing it to get a levy out of it.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, he states something this next couple of sentences here that I think require some examination because I would like to know if indeed this is the case. It's not really going to affect too much the way I'm thinking about it. But he says, kids and others being abused and no law enforcement support. Sick of hearing about the revolving door at the jail. Murders, yes, plural, allegedly by individuals that were in our jail just days before the crime. Allegedly. Okay, so when you say allegedly, that gives you an out if it turns out that what you were saying wasn't accurate. But I'd like to hear about these plural murders where the alleged perpetrator was allegedly in the jail, allegedly, just days before the crimes.
Well, any place in the world that kind of thing happens, it assumes a legend all out of proportion to its size. I mean, if it happens just once, there's the lady that throws her baby in a microwave. Well, that's horrible. Yeah. Does that mean that we're having a whole bunch of people who are doing that?
Right, an epidemic of that sort of thing. And listen, even if you did have an epidemic of that sort of thing, What would more law enforcement funding actually accomplish? If you had $17 million going to the sheriff, as we have had in recent, not too long ago years, 2005, 2006, that sort of area, we were having somewhere in that department going to them. Now, were they interrupting people in the midst of murders taking place? Or was just their mere presence out on the beat enough to deter people from murdering those they had, a passion to kill?
Well, I saw a police cruiser drive by here half an hour ago, so I better not get angry at my wife and punch her in the nose.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just silly. And listen, if you live out rurally, you know how much hogwash this is, because I lived here out then, and I heard plenty of stories of people that, who on occasion, living out in a rural area, needed something from the cops and had no less of a weight than they have now. As a matter of fact, I have a friend that lives a couple of miles from my house, and his house was burglarized, and they sent him a letter in the mail with a form to fill out. They didn't even show up at his house. So, and this was during full funding. So, I just don't buy the idea that if we give these people a bunch more money, we're going to see. I mean, it's a great argument to try and persuade people that we need to have greater law enforcement presence. So.
Well, we've come up with our own solution, haven't we? I'm always talking about that cost-benefit analysis. We've come up with our own solution. We're paying the amount of property taxes that we think is equal to the amount of safety coverage we're getting. We're not going to pay any more than the amount that we're getting. And if there was more safety coverage, we might be willing to continue it, but there's not more safety coverage out in the county, and therefore we don't want to spend any more money than that. And this is America, so we get a chance to vote, unless Cheryl Walker's plan and the other two commissioners who were going along with it for quite a while there, they don't talk about it anymore, was that we're going to be forced to do so by the government, by the governor. Then he writes, do you want to help make a difference before it's too late? Now, here's what we do in our show. As opposed to a couple of local purported to be newspapers who don't like to put in information about where to get more, he says, email me. Let me say that again. I recently wrote a letter to the editor of the Courier. They did not want to put the letter to the editor in the newspaper, probably for a couple of reasons, but also because I said where you could go to get more information. And they don't like that idea of me saying where you could go to get more information. So although they've always done it in the past, and I seem to be frozen in terror again, but pretty soon I'm going to be okay. That's the general idea. Oh my gosh. Just a second. Okay, now I'm all right. And so he says, email me, he means Jay Meredith, at securingoursafety@gmail.com, please. Securingoursafety@gmail.com. I see no reason why you shouldn't email this guy. Tell him what you think. Yeah. Then he writes, pretending we don't have a problem. I don't know who's pretending we don't have a problem. There's been saying that, well, there's people out there that say we don't have a problem. There's nobody that says that we don't have a problem. Who is this mystery person that says we don't have any problem? We got a problem, all right, but it's not only with our side of the argument. Pretending we don't have a problem is the worst thing we can do at this point. And the county can't do hardly anything without the support of its voters, thank God, and support of its that was my thank God, and support of its residents. So let's step up and do something. We are stepping up and doing something. You lose every time. We have lots of ideas, but we're still looking for your ideas and your input.
What? Listen. These people don't have the slightest interest in your input. The only thing that they're interested in doing is persuading you to vote for a levy. That's the only thing that they're interested in. Listen, Jay and I had an argument on Facebook about this sort of thing, and he says, you are, just poo-pooing all of this. You don't have any solutions. And so I went boom, 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 and I laid out about 5 or 6 of them. And of course, immediately I run into the thing where he says, well, you can't do that. Because one of my suggestions was, well, you cut 10% out of every department and you funnel that money over to public safety. And listen, they fall back on this. It's far too easy for them to fall back on this idea that, hey, well, wait a minute, hang on now. We're running afoul of the law. We can't do that. And, listen, the system is set up for the benefit of itself, so that you can't get in there and start taking the machine apart. They don't want you to do that, and so they have all kinds of trap doors that are going to take you out if you attempt to do anything about the problem. You need to also complain to Salem about the system. That's part of what the commissioners and the citizens need to be lobbying Salem about, is that, hey, listen, we're locked in a bad system here, and it's your system. And then, listen, if they don't respond to you, gather signatures and put something on the ballot that removes all of this control, or at least in an emergency, they love emergencies. And they love emergency legislation. Why can't they have an emergency legislation where you go in and say, hey, listen, here's the criteria for an emergency. We meet it here. Now take the controls off of our spending and allow us to do what we want. Allow us to control the way we run our own damn county, for crying out loud. If we had that control, none of this would be an issue. There would not be a funding problem, because we could get rid of entire departments that don't really matter if they're here or not.
That's correct.
And
they also they said at the budget meeting, they said at this budget meeting and the one previous to that, we can't really do things like taking the economic development money. We can't. And I've seen this on Facebook too. You can't take economic development money and spend it on the sheriff. Well, not only can we do it, but we've done it in the past. But when it recently came out that Jackson County is dedicating nearly 100% of their economic development money to their sheriff's department, the county commissioners were like, oh, what could they say?
The mayor's wife, was throwing that at me on Facebook here a couple of days ago, saying, you can't do that. You can't take economic development money and spend it for law enforcement. Oh, yes, you can. It's being done. This is a matter of will, because again, they have a great deal of pressure on this thing. And listen, you think the pressure is on now on law enforcement? You wait until next spring, and here's what it is. They're going to say, if you don't fund law enforcement with a levy right now, we are going to fall off the edge of the fiscal cliff in June, and the end of the jail operation is imminent. And listen, some people are going to freak out behind that. They may even win this one because of that. But they're setting up the circumstances. The reasons why we don't have a workable situation right now is because of government, both local, city, county, and the state and the federal, for crying out loud. We're in the perfect storm of government confusion, red tape, and regulation that has us in a situation. They have us, down on the floor with our our arm up behind our back. And it's, you give me more money or else. And they're threatening your very safety. These people,
they are.
It threatens our safety
every day now. It threatens our safety every day. The people who are not applying any funds at all, any extra funds to the sheriff's department. Only status quo. Remember, status quo. You're saying we never give any money. I'm not saying you're never giving them any money, but you're asking for a status quo budget and saying that people are dying because of a status quo budget.
Right.
But you're the ones that are insisting on the status quo budget. So who's at fault here? Us?
Right. Well,
Okay.
listen.
So did Jay Meredith talk about that? About what was going to happen next?
Well, no. I mean, he did to some degree, but here, let's go ahead and finish his letter here.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Okay. If we don't solve this on our own soon, I can nearly guarantee it will be more costly to our county than just coming together and solving it. In other words, coming together and paying more taxes. And then he says, even if local taxes are part of the ultimate solutions, the state is not going to come and stand by and let a county have no justice system for an extended period of time.
No justice system, Mike. What's the matter with you, Mike? Why are you advocating for no justice system?
Yeah, I don't know why I am. I just I feel compelled to at this particular point in time to advocate for no justice system. I realized that that's what I was doing all this time, but I guess that's what it is. Okay. So, and more residents and businesses will move out or choose not to move here in the first place. They're the ones creating this scenario. I mean, this is their push, their negative spin on this area. I think part of this is that they believe that if they say this stuff enough, people will believe it, and they'll fear for not only their own safety, but the value of their own property.
Well, self-fulfilling prophecy. The last sheriff that we had was traveling all over the West, making speeches about how terrible the law enforcement situation is here. Why? Why was he doing that? So the people in other areas would not move here, and then you could point at it and say, see, it's having an effect. It's having an effect because you're telling them.
Yeah. Okay. Real estate is one of our biggest businesses and assets. If we choose to go without solving it, you will have a different community in 10 years, and it won't likely be one that you want to raise a family in. In other words, your property values are going to drop through the floor. That's what he's saying. He's threatening people with that. Some negative changes are already happening that are not for the better. Some negative changes which are not for the better, opposed to the negative changes that are for the better. But we do have an amazing community, so let's fight for it. Yeah.
We are fighting for it. We're fighting for democracy. We're fighting for the republic. We're fighting for people being able to vote the way that they want to. And the people are telling you what they want. You're the one, Jay Meredith, that is fighting against the community doing what it says it wants to do. And so then he says, I challenge each and every one of you to offer solutions. Oh, well, Mike, why didn't we think of that? Oh, my gosh. Why do we offer no solutions on a show that's on every night of the year for, what is it now, 523 days? We never offer any solutions, Mike. Well, let's get with the program. And rather than complain about problems, that's all we do is complain. We never offer any solutions like get rid of these commissioners. And stay away from the personal attacks and follow the lead of Keith Heck and Cheryl Walker and Simon Hare. Almost all of us are law-abiding citizens, except for the commissioners, that just want, that's my words, that just want the same thing, the same thing, the same budget, the same status quo budget, those are my words, reasonable level of law enforcement services at a reasonable price, okay? And local control of our law enforcement, so what say you? I say the same thing I did to this guy the last time.
Yeah. And he says, shall we keep our heads in the sand or do something about this? You know what? I refer you to, if you go to the Dale Matthews YouTube page and just search for the Rob Pell story. It took place about 3 months ago. We had him on for the whole hour. And you want to see the picture of corruption that exists in the world that Jay Meredith lives in. Listen, Jay Meredith, don't throw stones. You're living in a glass house here, buddy. The corruption that exists in the county is nothing compared to the city. The city has entrenched staff who, they have their own agenda and they won't be bothered with non-rubber stamping city councilors. That's a very interesting, the Rob Pell story, and just details, his time on the city council and the recall of himself and I think 4 other city councilors. Very, right. Very illustrative.
Well, we hope that you found this show interesting. Again, I'm reluctant to always talk about what we're going to do in the future, but I'm trying that out this week. So tomorrow night, we're going to have Bill Hunker on in the same way that Lily Morgan was on, and the same way on Friday that Dan DeYoung will be on. And I'm going to ask them, basically, we're going to ask them the same kind of questions, posit the same kind of scenarios. And then on Thursday, there'll be a lip-sync meeting where they're going to be talking about what to do with the 3% marijuana tax. The county commissioners are dead set about having one. They just don't know what they're going to do with the money. Really? They have no idea what they're going to do with the money. And then, but then we're going to go over all the Facebook postings, or all the most interesting ones, that Mike's going to lead that discussion, and I'm going to have reactions. And then that night, Williams has a Grange meeting where they're going to be talking about the new marijuana laws, and that's going to be an interesting meeting. And then on Friday, Dan DeYoung is here to answer the same kind of things. What are your basic feelings about, obeying the law, which the current commissioners have said that they're not really that interested in doing? And Wally Hicks has said that basically the same thing, and that nothing is being done about breaking the law. But anyway, we invite you to come and see all those things. And Mike, what are we going to be doing on Saturday?
That's a good question. I have no idea. And thanks for that one. I have no idea whatsoever. You
were gone for so long that I just tossed a good grenade at you.
Yes, thank you. You know what? I did want to throw this at you because I've been thinking about this for a long time. When it comes to, this statistic messes with my head. And the statistic is that 80% of the crime in the county happens inside the city limits of Grants Pass. And, of course, the other 20% happens in the rest of the county, including Cave Junction. And then the last year that we have records for, which is 2014, has actually closer to 85% of the crime happening in the city of Grants Pass. So I wondered to myself, who is, because they always are saying, that the county is not paying their fair share here. And so I just did a little bit of math to try and figure out, okay, are we not paying our fair share? What's the deal here? So I broke it down. There's 35,000 people living in the city of Grants Pass. There's 82,000 people in the county total. 34,500 in the city and another 47,000 plus out in the county. So, and they all, whether you live in the city or the county, you pay the 58 cents per thousand of for property taxes. And so 80%, so the people in the city, they pay more than the 58 cents. They pay a lot more on top of that, but that is for services that they are receiving and that people out in the county are not receiving. So there's 47,500 people, and I don't know what the difference in assessments are. It may well be that the homes that are in the city of Grants Pass are assessed at a greater value than the ones that are out in the county. I don't know whether or not that's true or not, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the 34,500 that are in the city and the homes that they live in, and the 47,500 that live out in the county are actually 50-50, and it's at parity. Well, 50% of that is responsible for 85% of the crime, and the other 50% are only, responsible for 20% of the crime or 15% of the crime. So, and they're both paying the same thing in terms of, the base rate tax that ultimately ends up going to the sheriff's department. So who is it that's not paying their fair share here? That's the question I leave you with.
I'd like to also suggest we've brought this up on the show before, since the city, Grants Pass City, says that they're fully staffed. They have apparently somewhere near 50 police officers. Mm-hmm. For this very small little area. Why is it that doesn't seem to be making any appreciable impact on the crime rate? In fact, it's going up.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting, and you'd have to get into methodology, things like that. I mean, how are they doing their jobs? I think that has a lot to do with it, because the crime, I believe, in the last stat that we have is slightly higher in 2014, which is the last stat that we have, than it was in the previous year, slightly. It really isn't a whole lot. But we know for a fact that the city of Grants Pass being fully staffed, there's nothing wrong with the stats that they're putting out.
No.
So,
and if we were putting a lot more money into schools, I don't want to open up that can, but if we put a lot more money into the schools, shouldn't we have a higher graduation rate? Oh, Dale Matthews, it's more complex than that. I'm sure that it is. But if we put more money into the schools, shouldn't we have a higher graduation rate? If we put more money into...
It never has worked that way in the past.
Right, and shouldn't we have a lower crime rate? Shouldn't we? And so if it's true that the more money that we put into it, the higher our crime rate goes, then maybe Mike and I and several other people in the community, in fact, the majority of voters, have the right idea and putting less money into law enforcement because the county's crime rate is lower than Grants Pass City. Whether we understand the reasons behind it or not, well, I don't understand how taking a bath every day keeps you, well, says somebody back in the Middle Ages. Does that matter as long as that's what's happening?
Yeah. And you know what? One person posted something that I think is actually a brilliant way of doing it, and it was immediately shot down by Jay Meredith. So that makes me think that the idea has actually more merit than I immediately thought it did. And that was get the sheriff out of the jail. Have the Grants Pass take over the jail. They're putting most of the people into the jail themselves anyway. And then have the sheriff pay to put their people in on a per head basis. And bill them for that. And the thing is that if they're not constantly occupied with the operation of the jail, then you'd have more of these people on patrol out in the county. I thought that was actually a pretty good idea. And I'm sure they got 47 reasons why it isn't a good idea, because
it helps solve the problem.
Yeah, and you didn't throw a levy into the mix there.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. So Mike will be talking to us about something that is important. These Facebook conversations that are happening, that's where the news is moving. You're reading the newspaper, brother, you're not getting the news. at least watching our show, you get part of the news. Some of the other news organizations are completely missing it. And if you want to know what's happening right now, we'll go to Facebook for you, and we'll tell you what the conversations are. And as you see, there's Jay Meredith talking on a constant basis there. Larry Graves from the airport's talking on a constant basis there. The HR director, J.J. Schofield, is there. All the bad guys are there. And so we're going to tell you what they've been saying. This is where you can find out. Good luck finding it somewhere else. Good night, everybody.